Arthur Vale did not fall in the church hall. He ate there, drank tea there, put on his coat there with the grave care of an elderly man late in leaving, and told two people not to fuss. By the time he died, he was at home, pale enough to alarm the neighbor who called in with a basin borrowed from the supper. That gave the parish room for egg mayonnaise that had stood too long, for a bad stomach he had been too proud to name, for the sort of private collapse respectable people prefer. By 9, the vestry wanted somebody quiet before talk grew a second life. Thomas Reed came from his office and found the hall still smelling of dishwater and tea. Ruth Palmer was at the sink, sleeves rolled over thin wrists.
"You won't trouble me if you dry,"
she said.
"People ask better questions when their hands have something to do."
He took the towel.
He ate well? Ham, potato, pickled beetroot. Trifle after. If you're asking whether he seemed ill before tea, I'd say no. Tired, perhaps. Tea, then. It went out after the raffle notices. Iris had the hatch. Marian was taking plates through. I was at the far table, and by the time I came up, most had their cups already. Did Vale fetch his own? No. He'd stayed seated. Iris asked the older ones, sugar, same as she always does, and carried Arthur Vale's mug over to him herself. Before or after everyone had sat again? Before. No one had settled back.
From the hall came low voices, and one protest quickly hushed.
And after he drank. There was plenty of carrying and collecting. Things go muddled once people decide to be useful.
She wrung the dishcloth.
I remember his mug not being with the others when the main washing up got underway, but I could not swear whose hands took what in the minute before. That may mean nothing. It may. A man feels faint, and respectable people begin tidying, as if tidiness could prevent a doctor.
In the vestry, Arthur Vale's coat lay over a chair, his satchel on the floor beside it. Reed asked whose hands had been in either. No one claimed them. Inside the coat was a twist of paper folded round 2 little packets of digestive powder. In the satchel lay the supper books, and beneath them a list in Vale's careful hand headed for the following morning. Fuel Fund. Bazaar Cash Tin. Below were 3 names marked for checking. Marian Hales stood by the window, her handbag clasped in both hands.
"That list should not be in general view," she said. "It was in his satchel." "Yes, but if everyone starts saying audit as though we were a bankrupt shipping firm." He was checking parish accounts. He was always checking parish accounts. That does not make murder every time a man dies after supper.
She had the quick stillness of someone trying not to look as worried as she was. Reed glanced at the bulge of papers in her bag.
"Did you handle tea?" "I handled plates."
She opened the bag herself and took out a grocer's account book, a folded parish bill, and a smaller packet of papers tied with string. She smoothed the folded bill flat against her skirt before putting it back.
"I had reasons enough to dread tomorrow," she said. "The bazaar takings were not all banked when they should have been. Some household bills are late. If Mr. Vale had wanted to humiliate me, he could have done it with a pencil. What sort of delay? The sort that begins by being practical and ends by sounding criminal when repeated in a vestry. A parish coal bill wanted paying. The grocer was pressing. I moved one thing against another and meant to put it right. How much did Vale know? Enough to ask for the 10 and the receipts. Enough to make me wish the earth would open. Not enough to say I killed him."
At the back of the hall, 2 committeemen were arguing about whether the mayonnaise ought to have been kept colder. One had eaten 2 helpings and was using that as evidence. Iris Bell came through the kitchen with a tray of rinsed teaspoons. She moved with the speed of someone who kept small events from becoming disorder.
"Thomas," she said, "you should have had a plate before they put things away. Has anybody told you there was not enough mustard?"
Several times.
"That means the evening was a success."
She set down the tray.
"I hear people are already saying poison because nobody can bear indigestion if there's a drama available."
People are saying powders as well. Her expression altered.
"Powders?"
Digestive powders in his coat.
Poor man. He would die sooner than let a room know he needed a remedy.
She took up a cloth and wiped the table nearest the hatch.
He said only he'd had stomach trouble before and wanted to get home before everybody made a to-do.
Who heard that?
I did. I can tell you he looked put out by the tea.
Put out?
He said it was weak.
Ruth, behind them at the sink, said, "He did."
Did he take sugar? Sometimes, said Iris. Not much. And his cup? I poured it and carried it over, that is all. He stayed sitting, so I took it to him.
Reed asked to see the kitchen cupboards. Iris fetched the key ring from its hook. In the cleaning cupboard under the back stairs stood soap, mops, blue packets for the drain, and on the top shelf a squat bottle labeled rodent poison. Who has keys? Iris handed him the stock notebook. Weeks earlier, rodent poison had been issued for the shed. Beside the entry were several names on the key list, including Iris Bell and the sexton. The bottle was ordinary enough to sit in a church cupboard without seeming dramatic.
Marian ever use this cupboard? For polish, if she's helping before a bazaar. So does Ruth. So does any woman who has ever rescued a church hall from men with muddy boots. And me, of course.
On the hall side, 2 pensioners were still at their table. Mrs. Penk tapped folded raffle tickets on the cloth. Mr. Dobbs ate one last piece of sponge.
You both sat near Mr. Vale.
Near enough to hear him complain, said Mrs. Penk. About the tea, said Mr. Dobbs, said it was weak. Mrs. Penk corrected him at once. He said, "This is very weak," and then drank it anyway.
Did he add sugar?
Both thought. "I saw the spoon all wet and sticky by the sugar bowl after," said Mrs. Penk. "Brown on it. Nobody had put it back proper." Mr. Dobbs said he usually took it plain if the tea was weak. The side table where the mugs had stood was still against the wall beneath the harvest poster. Nothing remained on it now but paper serviettes and one saucer with dried tea drips standing a little apart from the stack. Marian Hales saw him looking.
That was by my washing up place, if someone has promoted it to evidence. Has anyone? Not yet, but they will. Tea drips become very important when women are frightened. Were you frightened? Of the accounts? Yes. Of poison? No. One ought to know one's own sins.
By 10, the hall had thinned to the necessary. Reed took Vale's satchel to his office and read the list again under his own lamp. Plenty of people had reason to dread it. Marian with her bills and overdue takings, any committee member who had shifted one fund against another, Iris Bell, perhaps, if relief parcels and small emergency cash had gone where no formal voucher followed. Good works often left bad paperwork. In the morning, he went first to the house where Vale had died. The neighbor told the same story the hall had already begun to embroider. He came in steady enough, she said, only pale. He held the back of a chair once, as if a wave had gone through him. She offered to send for the doctor. He said no, it was his stomach, and he had had it before, and he wanted to finish something. Later, she heard the fall.
What finish?
She pointed to the dining table. There lay the audit list copied out more neatly than the one in the satchel, and a church envelope addressed but unsealed. At noon, he called on Marian Hales in the curate's lodging. Papers were already spread on the table.
I've balanced the bazaar book as far as I can,
she said before he sat down. The missing delay is here. I used part of the takings to cover a parish coal bill when the grocer was pressing, and told myself I would replace it after Michaelmas. Then Michaelmas came with school shoes. She pushed the grocer's account toward him, her fingers ink-stained.
Did Vale know?
He knew enough to ask for the tin and the receipts tomorrow. That is motive, if that's what you're collecting, but not opportunity. I was near the side table because everybody was near the side table. She gave a short laugh with no mirth in it.
Do you know what was worst? He had begun checking in that polite way of his, not accusing, looking at one figure, then another, and saying, "Perhaps we should set this aside for the morning." I could hardly hold my teacup by then.
Did you see him do that?
With his satchel open beside him before supper. He had the list half out already. I thought he had shown it on purpose.
Shown it to whom?
To me, to Iris, to anyone passing near enough to understand what names on paper can do.
What did Iris do?
Nothing theatrical. She asked whether he wanted more hot water and kept the line moving.
She looked down at her hands.
You will not like me more for saying this, but Iris knows everybody's little ruin before they admit it. Coal 1 week, soup the next, an envelope carried quietly if pride is worse than hunger. Half the parish blesses her for it, and half fears her memory.
When he returned to the hall, Ruth Palmer was sorting linen by size.
People have got sharper overnight, she said. They often do. I heard Mrs. Kent say Marian Hales nearly fainted when Mr. Vale took out his papers. That is nonsense, but only just. She did go white.
Before supper?
Yes, he was near the vestry door with his satchel open. Marian passed him with the plate lists and looked as if she had seen her own burial notice. Iris was about as well, but Iris is always about. Marian was the one who looked struck. And after tea?
Ruth matched 2 cloths edge to edge.
There was plenty of bustle. I did remember one thing more clearly after you'd gone. Iris cleared Vale's mug herself before the rest of the washing up began. She told everyone to leave it to her because she was already at the tea things.
He said nothing, and Ruth added,
That may still be only tidying.
He spent the next hour in cupboards and ledgers. The stock notebook still showed the poison entry. The sugar spoon had been washed and returned. There would be no help there. On a shelf above the hatch stood chipped mugs in no set order, except that several parish regulars had favorites. Someone told him Vale generally reached for the brown-banded one if he served himself. Toward evening, the hall filled again, not for another meal, but because people preferred uncertainty in company. The committee chairman said in confidence, loud enough for others to hear, "If this turns into some allegation about parish money, we'll have the papers at the gate." A choirwoman said the chicken had tasted a touch high. Mr. Dobbs said if weak tea killed men, the county would be desolate. Somebody else said Vale had always been too close with his own remedies, and one never knew what powders old chaps took when no one was looking. Marian Hales stood by the notice board, speaking in a low, urgent voice to her husband about money that would now have to be explained to someone else. Her handbag was open, papers half out. Now and then she flattened one sheet after another against the board behind her, as if pressure alone might improve arithmetic. Iris Bell was at the hatch, answering questions and setting chairs straight.
Arthur's sister-in-law telephoned, she told Reed. She asks whether he left his spectacles. He hadn't. I've looked twice.
Thank you. I need one point clear. Before tea, when Vale had his satchel open, did you see what he was checking? She looked at him, then away to a stack of cups not needing her hand.
Only enough to know it was papers, and that Marian saw them too. Everybody knew he meant to go through things in the morning.
And after you carried him the tea?
After that, there was the usual confusion. Collecting, rinsing, people putting things where they should not. I can tell you no more usefully than that.
By the time Reed left, the hall had settled again around the same 3 shapes of hope: hidden powders, bad food, or debt-driven tampering.